old Windows 90. It's Windows 98. In performance, we go to virtual memory. We get to there by right-clicking my computer, and you'll see how the hard disk is a negative 28 gigs. Well, that's 26 gigs. Anyway, we go to the minimum. We type in 1024, which that's one gigabyte of disk space in both slots. And then we confirm that we want to manually manage our virtual memory, and we restart. This is another point where your computer could hang on a reboot. I have no idea why, but you'll run into that again with hardware that isn't specifically meant for Windows 98. Coming back in, we will want to install our most basic drivers for our system hardware. I've found that when you install hard drive, your hard drive management drivers like your RAID or ACHI drivers, pardon me, if you have SATA on your board, it will force you to have to do a whole reinstall. Because personally, I I mucked around in Windows 98 files over 20 years ago in order to get computers working. I'm not prepared to do it again. Almost 25 years ago. Anyway, um, now we are, well, it would have been 20 years ago. Yeah. Um, Now I'm copying 7-zip, and this is burnt to a CD, as you can see. I copy out 7-zip, and that's called the native USB drivers that I've got selected, and I'm copying those to the hard drive. The reason why you would want to copy these to your hard drive has to do with the fact that sometimes when you install things from a flash drive, well, at this point, it can't even read most flash drives that are around now. You would have to have one of those flash drives from the time period, and those generally had their own drivers that loaded when you plugged them in on a hidden partition. Um, Anyhow, install native USB drivers, restart your computer. Well, we're going into the install right now. At this point, you're technically supposed to go into your device manager and remove all your USB items and then install that. However, I do it backwards, which forces me to have to restart a second time. Again, this is a point where your computer can hang if the native USB drivers are not the correct ones, or rather, if they create a driver conflict, you could get stuck in a boot loop. I've had that happen. Um, but this seems to be the most viable way to do this. As you'll see, when I come in, I close down this window and I right click on my computer. I go to the properties. I go to my device manager. I scroll down to other devices. I uninstall everything that has to do with USB. I select remove, select remove. Now what this will do is this will allow me to refresh and for the computer to redetect it. In this sped up, you see it detected the onboard USB and everything else. So now I've got the USB plugged in and I'm copying the drivers to the desktop. and that was my Ethernet driver. This is my sound driver, and the the next you'll see my video card driver. The reason for me going with removing my sound card and installing the board's sound card drivers is because it created some form of conflict that wouldn't allow me to boot in. At that small pause where it said booting from CD, it's reading the CD that I have still in the hard drive that the drivers were, the initial native USB drivers were copied from. Now we are still loading up. It'll take some time. Again, it's building a driver database. Now you will see us go into the unofficial Windows 98 Service Pack 3. After it, of course, updates the drivers. This is for the video card. It's trying to redetect my monitor, default monitor, and it'll actually give it a name. And here's the Windows 98 system set up. Anyway, going past that, you see there on my the reason for the USB install was for me to actually be able to transfer files using a USB 2.0 flash drive that is more modern than the year 2000. As for the size of the flash drive, I don't go over 32 gigabytes because Windows 98 has a problem with drives that are over 64 gigs. So I don't even want to chance it with a drive larger than 32 gigs. So right here you see us, we're loading up the unofficial Windows 98 SE Service Pack 3, which I will give a link to in the description of the video. And once it gets through its unpacking, you'll see that it pops up a help screen, and that help screen actually gives us the order with which we need to do things. Now, I knew the order for this because I've done this multiple times in an attempt to get my computer to do a dual boot. I got tired of messing with it. It's probably nothing, as a matter of fact. I probably could go back and do a dual boot on this machine if I wanted to. But I'm not that worried about it, because what I want to do with this machine is play games that can run on Windows 98. And as you can see, it takes quite a bit to unpack this. I left it at its normal time so I could speak with you. Anyway, the first thing that we are going to install is the main updates. Then we're going to install DirectX 9.0, the one that comes with this, because it's actually an option in the window that pops up. Here we go. We're going into the actual part where you get your help. And it's kind of funny that it's a CHM file called from a batch file. Anyway, the installation order, as you can see, is right there. We don't install any version of Internet Explorer because it came with Internet Explorer. You don't want to install any of the Internet Explorer patches. However, we're going to select the main updates system core files, and we're going to click OK, and we're going to let it do its thing. This is again sped up 32 times, and it doesn't even go that fast. Well, it goes relatively fast, but in all actuality, it took about 10 minutes. So next we're coming back in, and the boot up took quite a bit too because we're still sped up. Anyway, it's unpacking again. I haven't really tried to not have to go through and unpack it again. It's most likely a temp directory. Next will be DirectX 9C included with this, and then we'll do the optional components list. But DirectX 9 takes a good amount of time itself. It takes close to 5 minutes, if not a little bit more. And that's on a Pentium 4 running at 3 gigahertz. Now coming back in, driver database, refresh, and once again we go up, we unpack it. We're going to do the optional components now. And the optional components are as follows. We go the Active Directory, Adapt Tech. We skip the animated boot up because that's caused hangs. And once I look at it, I decide I'm going to bypass the desktop icon layout. I of course want DMA for all my disks. The updated internet connection sharing, we bypass Internet Explorer 5.5. The main updates we also bypass. We want the agent server. We want the, oh yeah, we can't install that. So we bypass that because we got to install it separately. Oh, I didn't choose to install it separately. So we do the Euro conversion tool. We do front page express. Oh, I didn't do the Euro conversion tool. We do front page express. We do Internet Express Wizard. No, that's for installation Express Wizard to make .cab files. Then we got our IPP in case we want to print over the internet. And see, all these files, they're a combination of Windows 98, Windows ME, Windows 2000 files, and even some XP files that can run natively without the kernel EX module. Now, the kernel extension module serves the purpose of allowing you to run Windows XP programs on Windows 98 2nd Edition, which it doesn't allow